Morning, the discussion is always, as always, to open it so that we can fix it. Our discussion this week is on open data systems, and we need to, highlight the importance of open data systems to citizens. And this discussion definitely stemmed from the emerging corruption cases in Nigeria, which have made it important to address the need for open data systems that makes it possible for citizens to have access to coherent information. And to discuss this with us this morning, we've got two guests in the studio here for PPDC. We have Joshua Olufemi, Head of Knowledge and Innovation Unit at the Premium Times. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for being here. We also have Vish Matingi, software developer, software developer would suffice for today. This phrase is beginning to be very popular in everyday parlance in Nigeria, especially since Nigeria signed on to the Open Governance Partnership thing, and all of that. But can you help us explain, being the knowledge man, Joshua, what's open data?
So in a general sense, open data is a concept in governance where you open up or you publish a number of information that is governance where you open up or you publish a number of information that citizens can use, reuse, and without any copyright or any need to pay.
So freely make reference.
So freely make available, information that will enhance either, citizens' demand for accountability, that will also improve how corporate organizations can innovate around what they do and help generally public citizens, public policy makers, to find solutions to problems based on information that is made available to them.
No, so it brings forward, having followed your definition now about what open data is and how it could possibly help citizens, leaders, and everybody involved to understand how things do go. One is curious to ask about the importance to practice the idea of open data system in Nigeria. We've seen this like a long-standing fight when it comes to knowing what is going on in the country, especially in governance, and how this essentially benefits the citizens. One could count not just one, not two examples, but how is this important to citizens when we think about the open data system and what it drives, the conversation it provides, and where it leads to when it comes to the future of such in governance?
So essentially, giving information to citizens is first, helping them to make informed decisions. You notice, just for an example, how that the pattern of our voting or electoral process in Nigeria is driven by, what politicians say they've done. But there is no information for citizens to either verify or fact check that information. So if I say to you that today I've built 16 boreholes in Toro local government in Bauchi or somewhere else, there is no information to back that up. When government officials, make such claims, there is no way citizens can, know what is right or what is wrong. That's one way to look at it. So they just go to the poll, making decisions based on what they've been told by this, I don't want to call them the name that's coming to my head, but by politicians, right? At other times, you have citizens not even knowing where to access basic public infrastructures that even government have provided. So I don't even know where the nearest health center is to me. I don't know where I can get the best of education, if there is anyone anyways. So basic information as to where to get access to public goods, public services. As simple as that is a way to go. And also help giving information to citizens to even know what the problems are, so that if they are interested in improving or contributing to the change, they need that information. So if I don't even know the debt profile of Nigeria, if I don't even know what Nigeria is able to produce in rice, in any other product, it's difficult for me to even see how to go about it. If I don't know how to access government loans, if I don't, so it's helping citizens to be more informed, not only to demand accountability, but to find access and to be able to also contribute to problem solving. I've seen examples, people have said things like, the reason why we had the crisis we had in Osun State under the former governor, Rauf Aregbesola, was the fact that it made everybody feel everything was fine. There was, oh yes this, oh yes that. And at the end of the day, the state was in crisis in terms of making for its expenditure through its revenue. And that's because people don't even have the information about it.
Okay, so let's throw this into a more practical arena here. This is where we bring you in, Veshima. You are a software developer. What are the options that are available to Nigerians today? Looking at practical examples you can share of the use of open data and how it is beneficial to citizens.
Yeah, so we're here to for Budeshi Radio, and I think the best example is actually Budeshi, our platform that we've built and we've been using. So we've had several cases of we requesting for information, putting it up on the platform, and then people having access to it. And just like Joshua said, so it starts from actually the data becoming available, people having access to it, and then making use of it to make informed decision. So for instance, we had a case where we requested for information from a certain MD, I can't remember the name, where they claimed, or rather, yes, there was a claim that a hospital was built in a certain local government, and then so we sent out our monitors to go to that local government to, just to confirm that this is what they say is on paper is actually on ground. And then our monitors getting there only to find out that this hospital was not in existence. And this is as a result of the data that we had. If we did not have that data, we wouldn't have known that certain amount of money was allocated to this local government for this project. And as a result, we mobilized the community, where the community was able to start asking questions to say, they started speaking to leaders of the community to say, this is the data that we've seen, and they've said that primary health center was done in our community, and we can't seem to find it. And then eventually questions began to spring up, and eventually led to the MDA taking action, and this primary health center was built. I think another example is a case where we also requested for information, put it up on Budeshi, and then as a result of the insights that we got from the data, we found out that money was allocated for rehabilitation of a primary school, where we went there and we found out that nothing was actually done about it. So these are some of the cases where we request for data, we get insight. As a matter of fact, there's one that also comes to mind. It's I found out about it as a result of a research that we did, my team and I did in Kaduna a few months ago, where we were speaking to a media person, where they had a coalition of media people and civil societies and members of MDAs, where so they did a research and basically found out that maternal mortality rate was on the rise. And then getting deep into the reasons why these kind of things were happening, they found out that it was as a result of lack of family planning. Now, getting deeper into the reason why there's lack of family planning, they saw that what happened was there there were tools that were sent out to to help the members of some communities to better do family planning, right?
Yeah.
It was budgeted for, and those tools were bought.
Were purchased.
They were purchased. But then the mistake that was made was that there was no budget for disbursement of these these tools.
Oh wow! So the tools were in the stores.
Yeah, so exactly, they were bought. They were in the
But
stores.
there was no funds.
But there was no funds for it. So that is how data gives insights, and as a result of that, this coalition started an advocacy that eventually led for the budget to be included for yes, exactly, budget to be included for the disbursement of this, and then that led to a reduction in the rise in the maternal mortality rate. So that's just giving practical examples of how being able to give access to data, providing access to data, people having access to that data, people getting insights, and then leading to actions being taken.
I'm curious, and Joshua, you may be able to help me with this, because one of the things in your organization and the organizations you work with, especially because you work with data, is the barriers that you face in gathering the data in itself. Like you said, there are claims that do come out from government and politicians and the likes of them to have done such, and when investigated and doesn't turn out to, then there's a counterclaim that the data gathering method was not done in a way that it would favor the reality that they are projected. So one is left to wonder about balancing, or should I say, finding out the barriers that come with data. For example, few governments, state governments that do open up with about what they do have and what they have done, most of those data is provided by them for you to check up on, for you to verify, which is different from you gathering or monitoring in itself. And I wonder, for the ones that have held it so close, like secrecy is a treasure for some politicians, I wonder, what is the biggest barrier to data gathering? From the NGO perspective, from your project perspective, and of course from the software guy, I don't know how that works, what he would input when there's almost nothing to input.
Well, so data gathering for civil society, media, and everyday citizen, it's first, the barrier is because you don't have enough of that data published by government in the first place. When you make requests, freedom of information request, you either get some technical responses such as we are working on it, or sometimes I've even gotten from a government agency saying that because I didn't include the RC number on the letterhead of my organization, then there will be no response. They didn't respond. And even though the FY law says that individuals can even make requests. So it's even honoring you if I put it on the letterhead in the first place. What I need is basic information. So you have the challenge of government officials or institutions not respecting the freedom of information.
Becoming a clog in the wheel.
So that makes it very difficult. At other times, even when the information is available, the way it is made available is such that it's not easy to decode, to use. We talk about access not being just providing, but making it usable. Usability of data is very important. So a lot of government, we started an initiative with Data Fight, where we're trying to clean up government data budgets, state budgets for 2019.
Okay.
We did for about 13 states out of about 20 that we had. There were some you would wonder whether they poured water on the document before they scanned it and made it public, because you couldn't get anything out of it. So that's another problem. First, providing that data in a way that's very difficult. When you give the Nigerian budget out, first thing you do is a document of over 1,900 pages, and then you make that document PDF, so that even if I have to, convert it, it's difficult. We have to either be buying, premium or enterprise softwares to be able to. And even when you do that, you still have error, because optical character recognition is not so accurate, and it's not 100%.
And these are not things that everyday people
even have access to. You get that point. So at the other, and you wonder that these documents were prepared from a typical spreadsheet in the first place. So why first turn them into PDF before you make, and then you turn them into PDF first, you print it, you scan it. So we want that. There's an initiative we're trying to do, working with PPDC, where the Nigerian Medical and Dental Association has a register of practitioners in Nigeria, and it's a big document of about 3,000 pages, and you don't have it in the public space for people to use. So even if I want to know which doctor or which specialty I need to deal with, there is no information in the public space. And even when you have it, it's on the paper. We've been trying to see how we can even scan that. So you're going through the same process that they went through. So you type some document on a Word document or on a spreadsheet, you turn it into paper, and then you make it public. So that we go through the same process, and then you have the error. But on the other part of government too is the awareness. You see, we're coming from a regime of secrecy, where even for you to make document available, you can go to jail for it. We've seen in this country where a judge is about to be prosecuted for giving his judgment, right? So even government officials are afraid of what document are they supposed to make public, that for them not to lose their job. So you have that challenge of capacity and political will of government. We can talk about processes and methodology that government uses in making in collecting its data, but I have strong respect for the professionalism of Bureau of Statistics, even at federal and state level, because there are professionals that are doing this job. We can talk about the sample size not being enough. That's not a problem. We can talk about recycling the same sample size for 10, 20 years. We've had situation where we hear the NBS is using the same sample size in the last 10 years. Household sample size in the last 10 years, and it's not even up to 100,000 sample size. That's another issue for another day. But you can talk about how well they have done the classification, categorization, such that the clusters or the sampling size, it's reliable.
Right,
And even the releases, yeah.
But you have to also ask yourself the question: what is the budget of NBS compared to the budget of Nigerian Communication?
So you can extend this conversation really long.
Yeah, so there are challenges on the side of government, especially those that are saddled with the responsibility of making data available or open. And there's also the challenge of secrecy, like you mentioned, and also the capacity to know how best to make data open. I don't expect any budget in Nigeria to still be produced as PDF in 21st century, in a government that has signed up to open data. And I don't also expect that you just tell me that the project is going to be done in Cool FM or in Nigeria Info. You get my point? And you don't put a location. Where is Nigeria Info? Is it number 14, Muhammadu Buhari Way, or where? So we need that location information going with, especially when it's about public projects. We have monitors go to different places and they are lost. Sometimes they are lynched. People think that they are government officials, and and they attack them. Some people think that they are contractors. Before they explain themselves, they start stoning them, just because they are trying to find location. So you see, those are the challenges with data collection.
Major challenges, if you ask me. Major challenges. Well, we're so pressed for time. Well, maybe we'll be able to squeeze in some of these recommendations. Vishma, if you can give us a few recommendations that will ensure smooth sale of open data so that citizens can begin to enjoy some of these benefits, just in a nutshell.
Okay, so I guess just like Joshua said, that there are lots of issues that we can start tackling from different angles. But I think that from one of the main things that we need to do is start to promote the culture of availability of data, of the use of data, because that's like the origin. That's where the data value chain actually begins. People having that sense of making use of data, people having to request for data from this MDS, because at some point it would people will tell you that it's because nobody has been requesting for this data. That's why they don't bother to make this data available. They don't bother to even collect the data in that sense that they can provide to other people.
Yeah.
So I think that it actually starts with the culture, and then just making sure that once public institutions are able to imbibe that culture of properly storing data, properly putting it out in formats that people can access, then we start to deal with challenges of production, making sure that the data is coherent, making sure that there are no gaps in the data. Then we start talking about ways of sharing the data, putting it out in open open formats, putting it out on portals that people can access from anywhere.
Open and usable formats.
Open and usable formats, usable, very key. And then before we even get to the point where actions, insights can be developed, data can be processed to develop, knowledge, to develop insights, and then we now get to where we are actually taking actions and then getting responses from government.
If you were to say where we were as a nation right now managing data, what would you say? Where are we? Are we at the point where we are beginning to be aware that we must prioritize proper data management, or we're at the point where we should be at the second stage where you were talking about, how to put it together and start to look for loopholes and all of that? What point are we?
I think generally there's that sense of the importance of data that is being generated in the minds of people. When we have portals, we have systems like the Data Fight that Joshua talked about, Budeshi, and then these are portals that are developed by civil society or by private citizens, right? We also have public institutions also coming up with such portals. So I think that
we're at the point of awareness.
We are at the point of awareness. That sense of needing the data, is coming up, is getting in the minds of people. And then we are not 100% there yet, but we have started something.
Can we take a final word from you in 1 minute?
Okay, so just to say that yes, we are at the point of adoption, but it's important that we are also purposeful about the data that we are opening up, right? So that we are not just anything. Some people will just put the salary structure of government in the public space and they say they are fine, right? So we are purposeful about what data is important to put out there in the health sector, in the education sector, in the agriculture sector, every other sector out there. We should be purposeful about what we are putting out in the first place. The other thing is, every data that government is putting out there at least should be a spreadsheet, at least. Or what everybody calls Microsoft Excel. I'm not selling for Microsoft. That's the minimum standard. And if it is about projects, it should have address so that people can know where and what you're talking about. Yeah. That for me is important. But also for civil society and the media to also take advantage of the little that is already available. Because there's also the need to convince government that opening up data has, usefulness.
And benefits, yeah.
Right? And I think that we've seen a lot of civil society and media initiatives. We've seen a lot of corruption being exposed just because of the little information we have on budget, procurement, and all of those things.
Yeah.
So, but more importantly also is that government data, as they are being published, they should be thinking of how they, interconnect or how they interface with one another. Right? So that the budget document, the budget office is not doing a different portal and different from the one that replicated or just, and all of that. And there is need also for government to work with civil society organizations who are, daily thinking about how to open up the data so that we work together and rather work in silos.
All right, Joshua. Joshua, I know there's a lot to say about this. Joshua Olufemi, Head Knowledge and Innovation Unit, Premium Times, and Vesh Matingi, Software Developer, both our guests on Budeshi this morning. We thank the team from PBTC for this very interesting conversation, but we've got to go now.